Okay, so we come from the Museum of the Education. I'm in charge of the part of education. My name is Fernanda. And as I was mentioning, here we have some, let's say, some of the screams that the people make during their march that people usually express during the student movement in Chile. I also have an audio that I also believe that will be sounding right now.
Bueno, lo que
Okay, so what you just heard is is the manifestation of the penguins or penguins manifesting themselves. And for this, it's necessary to explain what penguins are in Chile. In Chile, we call penguins to the secondary students, and it has to do with their uniform, right? These traditionally the uniform in Chile was very similar to the appearance of a penguin. So what is the penguin revolution? It's the revolution of the students of high school that started to demand from 2016, even before, an education with quality and free. And the Museum of Education, from where I come from, is a museum that has a critical view over education in general. But we didn't have a space where we could speak about this movement of students that is the greatest movement of students in the history of Chile. Therefore, the only thing that we had was this panel that spoke about the educational movement around all the 20th century. And towards the end, the last lines made a reference to the movements of 2006. And from the educational area, we started to think about a path or a touristic path that could make an emphasis over the struggle for education and the right of education in Chile. We also, when we didn't have something concrete to make a reference in this during this touristic path, so we gave an idea to the people of the team that had to do with giving an intervention to this artwork permanently, giving a reference to the movement. As you can see, it's just like showing some chairs that are all put together, taking the sense of of course, of the struggle, and certain cartels that gave some words over what was happening in the movement. So we went to the different walks, to the different protests that they were making to take some samples over the audit, over what they scream, taking some photographs over what they were doing, and we made a collection over what had to do with the student movements in the last times. And in this sense, we were not doing anything new because the museums have been taking elements of the protests from the 19th century, but for some decades ago, it has come back into fashion. It has taken a new strength over the sense, and it made us to take that part of the inclusion and social justice into the museum, and we adopted this initiative. So this initiative begins, in difference to the others, from the educational area of a museum to talk it and discuss it with the visitors. Here it's a little bit more advanced with some of the canvas that we recollected from these manifestations, and some different things or curious things starting to occur when this just had some days. We had new pamphlets that just came in there because they were spontaneously put there by visitors that went to the museums, and they were called to manifest themselves, and through the cameras we discovered that it was the visitors that were putting this. And here, for example, we had something that said that if the education in Chile changed, Chile would change, especially in this sexist topic. Here I am. It's not a photograph that favors me a lot, but here we're talking with a group of students over these milestones, over the struggle for the public education. And in these kind of visits, we generate a discussion that is incredibly rich because there are different visions, different opinions. And if, well, the student movement starts as a citizen movement that was genuine in 2006, in the last decades or years, it has been manipulated politically, and that has made the opinion to change in terms of this. So there are students of medium education, high school, that are saying that they are not interested in the student movement because they don't want to lose classes. So because that makes them lose class and of course brings prejudice. But others debate that it's necessary to take a position in front of this and manifest themselves. And there are also the professors and the adults that go with the groups that are also invited to give opinions. So there is an intergenerational dialogue that is generated because there are many people that talk about the manifestations during the time of the dictatorships, or there are professors that participated in the manifestations of 2006. Because by that time, these children that we see there should have like 5 or 6 years during the penguin manifestation. So, are we positioning in front of this topic? Of course, the museum, before making this intervention, was saying that the education in Chile is a right. It's not a service, it's not a privilege, it's a right. And we have always spoken about this publicly. And as a matter of fact, we have it also here in this artistic manifestation. And here we have something that can be a little bit controversial because the Museum of the Education is a statal museum. And just some months ago, the statal museums depended on the Ministry of Education. So we had our huge boss that was the Ministry of Education, sometimes the big bad guy, and we had the students on the other side, and we were in the middle. So when we made this, there was some discussion in the team: should we do it? Should we not do it? And towards the end, we all agreed. We were all on the same page, and we finally decided to do this and come out with this idea. This activity also has an objective that has to do with recognizing that the students and the people and the visitors in general recognize themselves as historical subjects. We tell people as a part of this activity that we are going to the manifestations to recollect objects, and when we tell this to the little ones that in many occasions are the ones that of course construct or build these objectives, they realize about the role that they're doing now in this moment, because the museum, it doesn't have to do only with the past, but also reconfiguring the present and realize that they are the main characters of this historical moment and have consciousness that what we're doing or what we are not doing will have consequences in our legacy. We have also received donations. There are a lot of people that say, hey, I have scholar passes. As a matter of fact, I'm showing here a scholar pass. We didn't used to have this, but now we have a great variety of the scholar passes. And it's very important because in 2006, part of the petitions of that penguin manifestation had to do with these benefits in the public transportation. And we are not limited to the scholar public. We're also open to discuss with different types of publics in the museum. And in that sense, we have also studied the behavior of the people in the room through observations. And we have realized that this kind of interventions are the ones that have been the most photographed within the room. There are 3 types of photographs: the typical photograph, the photograph with offensive manifestations towards the manifestations, and selfies that have to do with involving with what we have there. I think we're running out of time. Everybody wants to go and eat, so I just want to give 2 reflections that have to do with up to what level do we operate the censorship in the museums? Do we really have censorship, or is it a self-censorship? Up to what point are we limiting ourselves? It has to do with our realities, but up to what point do we also dare? Or are these limits a little bit diffuse? So in that sense, if we're forming citizens, if we're helping to form citizens, why are we doing it, and for whom are we doing? These are the questions that we leave to you. So thank you very much.